Welcome to Sehtar. My name is Venkatesh. I'm an author and a therapist. Today, we are continuing with presentation skills. A fantastic topic, a very exciting topic, and something that's really useful for not just your career but in general for your life. And therefore, it's also one of my favorite topics. So, today we are going to look into the aspect of storytelling. One very important aspect of presentation skills is to understand the art of storytelling. So, how you tell your story, what's the narrative, what are all the important building blocks and elements that you need to think of, how do you weave them together and impress your audience, how you can do your best to suit the narrative, the topic, your audience, and overall how they all come together. That is what we are going to look into in today's session. So, like I said just a moment ago, the one important aspect that you will always have to remember is the narrative. That's where it all begins. That's the the building block, the skeleton of your presentation. So what's the narrative? Now there is the content part. There is something that you want to say, and there are a lot of bits and pieces to it, and probably 2-3 sections or even more, like 5 or 6. However, they all come together, and there is one very important point of which the whole thing revolves around, and that you could probably write it in one sentence, maybe a couple. That's it. If it goes beyond that, then you're trying to probably pack too much, and you may want to consider splitting it into 1 or 2 presentations. If you can think of just in one sentence what you can say in a very powerful way, then you got it. That is your narrative. That's your plot. That's your main storyline. And you can then add on top of it all the flesh and skin and colors and tones and saturations and all the stuff, and bring in conflict and contrast where necessary, bring in compare and contrast where necessary, and then go and twist the story where required, and then finally come to the climax part of it. And then you end the session and you end the story. So the whole thing revolves around that one plot, and the plot thickens as you proceed with the presentation, and then finally you come to an end. So that's how you weave in everything. So how do you begin? Where do you begin? Like I said, it's the narrative. 1, probably 2 lines, that's it. So you write that narrative first, and you think about it. Are you going to say it somewhere in the introduction? Are you going to increase and make the audience really wait, and they few minutes into the presentation, somewhere getting near the middle, that's when they are all waiting with bated breath, and that's when you reveal? Do you want to do that, or you just want to say upfront, here is it, this is what we're going to look into? So all are different styles. So you can pick the style that suits your personality, you can pick the style that suits your topic, you can pick the style that may be more relevant for the audience. So you'll have to decide on what works. These are all the different options you have, and you may want to pick one that suits you the most. Also, one very important thing that you may want to consider is, depending on the style you are choosing, you will also have to choose your vocabulary. The words, power words. Some words have a lot of power, and some can actually straight go deep into the hearts and minds of your audience. So you'll have to be very careful not to rub off on some people in a very unexpected way. So you'll have to be a bit careful on how you play with the words. 90% or probably even 95% of the audience will be able to understand what you're saying, but there could be a very small percentage of people who are very sensitive, and you do want to take them into consideration when you are choosing your words, when you are choosing your style, and how you go with the flow. This is something that you can easily understand from the perspective, your point of view, and when you are looking at your audience and you're engaging with them, you can sort of like understand and pick the vibes and see where it goes, and then adjust it where necessary. Kind of tweak it a little bit, and then slowly you can take it forward. So another important aspect is to build the whole stuff. This is also called as like setting the scene. So how you kind of lay out the whole scene, and as you go into the session, you can also like remind them in terms of like what you're saying and where you're going with it, and how they all like kind of piece together. They kind of like come together. So imagine you're taking your audience along the maze, and then slowly you're revealing one by one. If that could be a style that resonates with you, probably you may want to do that. And every now and then you kind of repeat and remind your audience about what you're saying and why you're saying, and the reasons for some of the facts and figures. Instead of being too abstract, you may want to like extrapolate and explain them a little bit, so you provide the narrative. One another aspect that you can do is repetition. One of the key elements that will easily sit with the audience and how you can actually get things embedded in their mind is repetition. And pick the key points that you really want to repeat, and then repeat them as often as necessary. One more thing you can do is the use of vocabulary in a way that not only resonates with logic and the head part of it, but also use words which will resonate with the heart part of it, like feelings. So have a kind of balance between thinking and feeling. So you kind of like switch back and forth and appeal to their rational side, and then also touch their emotional side. Both of them are important. Depending on the context and depending on your audience and the reason for your presentation, you may want to kind of increase one aspect of it, but usually you can strike a balance. It's pretty easy depending on the topic. If it's more about numbers and metrics, some people may find it interesting who are more analytical, but on the other side, some people are also more towards the creative side and they don't get too fascinated by numbers and logic. So you will have to find a balance between how you combine what's appealing for the intellectual and the rational side of the brain, and what's appealing towards the emotional side and the feelings part of it. The reason is everyone, even though they are very analytical, they will still have feelings and they want to understand what it actually means. So the meaning part of it is where you can easily touch the hearts and minds of your audience. So you may want to consider adding in words that will really resonate with the emotional aspects, and you kind of like bring in those elements in a way so that it will kind of like justify and reinforce the whole theme and your narrative. So this art of storytelling and how you say the story will make a huge difference. Trust me. Every presentation, every conversation has some element of storytelling in it, and all conversations can become very powerful, and all of them can really have a big impact if you can weave in the language in a way that people can understand and keep it very simple. You don't have to really complicate things. Nobody wants unnecessary complications, and so keep it simple. Just plain and simple. That will easily land nicely and smoothly. So go for it, and rehearsal is very important. Practice. Practice makes perfect. Practice really makes things perfect. And above all, be genuine, be authentic. Just be yourself and speak straight from the bottom of your heart. If you could do that, you will easily impress people, you will easily convince people, not because you did it in a nice way, but because you are like one among them. You didn't really pretend or fake anything, you are really one among them. When people can relate to you, when people can resonate with what you're saying, then automatically you are the chosen person, and they will like you, they will love you. Your audience will love you. It is possible. So go ahead, gear up for success and victory. Wishing you all the very best in your life and your career. See you in another episode. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family and your loved ones. Subscribe to our channel to get all the new exciting content on a regular basis. Enjoy.